Hey, this is Zach Log the Great, and I am here tonight with Nate
Hello again.
and with Mr. Brian Niemeier.
Good
Say
evening.
hello. And we are here tonight to talk about the poem Tailgunner Joe by Tom Riley. Now, I did want to, uh, Mr. Niemeier is a science fiction author, and you currently have an Indiegogo project going for a military SF novel, Combat Frame X. Am I getting this right?
Two-thirds right. Comet Frame Exceed.
Okay, Combat Frame X Seed, and that's a fun Indiegogo fundraising to get that going. And your previous books include the Soul series, the Soul Cycle books, correct?
Correct. And slight correction, I'm actually crowdfunding the second book in the Combat Frame Exceed series. The first book, titled simply Combat Frame Exceed, is already available on Amazon right now. I'm currently crowdfunding the sequel. Had a big response, rave reviews to the first one. Um, House blog said that it breathed new life into military science fiction. So yeah, I'd advise everybody to check that out. If we get a 500% funded, then my good friend Jim Fear 138 will narrate the audiobook version.
Okay, so I am going to have a link to the Indiegogo project in the description, as well as to Mr. Niemeyer's own blog. So, um, having said all that, uh, well, yeah. Oh, crud. Um, would sorry, there's a little background noise here. Would one of you like to lead off reading the poem? It's a fairly short one. We could no real reason not to start off with that.
Yeah, I'll be honest, my voice is just racked with allergies right now,
Oh,
so would not recommend me. Otherwise, I would.
Nate, you got it.
Yeah, yeah. Give me a
Okay.
second.
Thank you. Thanks for bailing me out.
No problem.
I did appreciate this choice of poem. I
All
think it's
right.
appropriate on many levels.
Tailgunner Joe. Had you no decency, Tailgunner Joe? You wouldn't leave our commie friends alone. You didn't blush to hear the leftists groan about the way you dared to fight the foe. Why on earth did the nation need to know where infiltrators were? The great unknown can be a comfort in the twilight zone, and truth is frequently the cause of woe. They cut you off and pushed you out of sight at last. Your dog just couldn't shatter those final obstacles, nor could your light reach shadows duly shielded, even sadder. When in the end we learned that you'd been right, the pundits sneered and said it didn't matter.
Oh, lovely.
And yeah, that is Tailgunner Joe by Tom Riley. This is a for my channel a kind of interesting one here because I actually have encountered Mr. Riley elsewhere on the interwebs, and I've seen some other things he's written, and I asked him if he could write something in tribute to Joseph McCarthy, who frankly I think deserves a national holiday. But this is the best I can do, and so he actually wrote this on request, and I recorded it, and now we're talking about it. So that's a first for my channel.
And let me
But
just say, really quick, let me just say, Frank Sinatra always said, you don't sing a song, you sell a song. And I think the same can be applied to poems. And let me say that Nate totally sold me on that. Good job.
Oh, thank you.
well, I also have to say there's a one of the reasons I've been doing this poetry series is if you look around, you can see like readings of a lot of classic poetry on YouTube. And I'm not going to name any names, but generally the reading quality is terrible. It's just flat and expressionless and uninvolved. And so I'm like, you can do these poems better. There's a lot more in these poems than you're giving it. They deserve better. You know, G.K. Chesterton's Lepanto deserves better than this. You know, pick one of the others. But so yeah. Mr. Niemeier, as the guest, would you like to start us off? What are your thoughts on the poem?
One, it meets the standard of all true art, that it's true, therefore beautiful. Despite what the mainstream media has been telling us for around 60 years now.
Yeah, it's
Closer to 70 now.
Yeah.
Coming on. It's one of those things that, like, you know, I went through high school public school, and they told us about McCarthyism, and we did the play what is it, Arthur the Crucible by Arthur Miller, and how terrible all this was. And I'm like, okay, sure, why not? And you know, I just took all this as true. And then just a few years ago, I was actually reading a book by Ann Coulter. And I'm trying to remember. I'm not certain which one. It might be Treason. I'm not sure. And she talked about
Treason isn't funny.
No, I'm sorry. I thought that could probably be the title of Hillary Clinton's next biography.
Not an autobiography.
I'm not sure.
But and you know, Ann Coulter described you know, the real events, and you know, what he really did and what really happened to him. And I'm like, I was just totally knocked flat. And you know, I've seen other people. Stefan Molyneux has a presentation about Joseph McCarthy.
Yeah, that's required viewing. I would humbly suggest you put the link to Stefan's treatment of McCarthy in the show notes as well, because that was eye-opening for me.
Yeah, that's like 3.5 hours of information you need.
And
I knew that. I've known since I was a lot younger that, you know, McCarthy was right. I mean, like, I was a freshman in college, you know, at this very liberal artsy school, you know, and he got brushed on in a discussion. I said, y'all know he was right? And
oh, that went over well, I'm sure.
Oh, I mean, I probably would have got a less stunned reaction if I'd taken a poop on the table. I was like,
yeah, that's about the reaction I got.
I'm talking to a bunch of, you know, like, you know, urban kids who have probably grown up around leftism their whole life, and the professor at the time was a no kidding Wiccan priestess. So they just stared at me for like a solid 10 or 12 seconds, and then they're like, moving on.
Well,
like, we don't know what to do.
You got off easier than I did when I said the same thing to another author I won't name recently. But Dietrich said, I've had destroyed lives after we'd gone through the whole argument. And I was like, name one. And they never can. because all the people that he did call out went on to cushy careers in academia. Their lives weren't destroyed. His was.
Yeah.
Considering what communists do to Christians wherever they gain power, and considering that, okay, he wasn't like literally executed, but he was pretty much like harassed
he was definitely persecuted.
But he was pretty much harassed into an early grave. Like, I think it would. I honestly would like him. I think he should be a candidate for sainthood. Because I mean,
Well, yeah, he was a staunch Catholic. He was a family man and a just judge for all we know. I mean, if you look at his record on the bench, right?
and he may very well have saved millions, possibly tens of millions of lives.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, I'd co-sign that.
Yeah. I ain't even Catholic. I'll go for it. I mean, like, yeah, all right.
but one thing interesting, returning to the poem itself, it's a Petrarchan sonnet, an Italian form sonnet, 8 line and 6 line, and part of the build with that is just over halfway through. There's a turn. There's a change in the. There's a significant change in the structure or the meaning of the poem, and it is interesting in this one because it goes, which is actually, if you think about how most people understand these things these days, it's pretty well done because it starts out with the standard view, the the standard issue public school education view, and then it switches to from seeing him from the other side, having found out who he really was and what he really did. And I think that's an interesting shift for an interesting build for a sonnet. I think that's a good, was well planned structurally.
Honestly, I think my favorite part about the poem is the title and kind of what it says about the man, Tailgunner Joe. He was, in World War II, he flew combat missions as a tail gunner in the Pacific with the Marines, right? And but the idea of what a tail gunner does really sums up sort of the rest of his, or the major impact of his life. The tail gunner is the guy that, the pilots get all the glory. They fly the missions, they do the thing. While the tail gunner's kind of hanging out the back of the plane, trying to protect them from things they can't see. And the tail gunner's also the guy that could very well you get back to base and find out he's been shot full of holes and bled to death without you ever really being the wiser. And so, Joseph McCarthy, he spent all this time fighting, to protect America from its enemies, trying to, keep our prosperity and our way of life going in the face of all these threats. And he got cut down, and it's only now after the fact that we realize exactly what he did and exactly how valuable he was, and that, yeah, he was a hero. He did, he pushed it back, I mean, until you stamp out the ideology, you can't really say he saved us, but he definitely bought us time. And so, I think it's a fitting tribute to him. I don't think I will ever reference him as Senator again. He's going to be Tailgunner Joe to me forever.
Sorry about my brief absence, attending to young ones. But so I didn't hear that. So, Mr. Niemeier, would you like to carry on?
Certainly. No, I think that the title and the appellation which was applied to Senator McCarthy during his life is apt. Right? It's this kind of rear guard overwatch position, protecting the rest of his team, the rest of his crew from threats they can't see, and taking the brunt for it. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing with his story is like, you look at our government, you look at things today, and you're like, could we get him back? We need someone else in his mold. Like, I mean, I don't know if either of you have heard of I forget, Imran Awan, I think. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
okay, I might have the name wrong, so that might be why. There were these, I think it was these two brothers, I believe Indian, from South Asia, not the misnamed ones here, um, who were doing like computer work for Congress, and like okay, not American, like for one thing, and just like basically probably walked off with enormous amounts of sensitive, almost certainly walked off with enormous amounts of sensitive information, like on everyone, because like they had access to the computer systems, and like a year or so ago, there was like I saw a few places talking about this. As far as I know, nothing's actually happened to them, and it's like, is anyone even trying to take care of the country, take care
No,
of uh
I don't know, man. Dan Crenshaw, maybe.
yeah,
Turned
and
out he
so
was, but he retired. So rats.
and it's like like Stephen Molyneux said in his presentation on Joseph McCarthy, part of the point of what they did to him, and especially after he is gone, and how they have utterly wrecked his historical reputation for the time being, at least, is you know if you push back against communism, or the left agenda in general, this is what's going to happen to you too. So keep your head down.
Yeah, I mean,
And
the worst that they can factually throw at McCarthy, right, is okay. They can call him on some exaggerations of his war record. Okay, like, oh well, he claimed that he flew 32 aerial missions. He's a liar. Doesn't deserve the Tailgunner Joe name. Well, they'll try to phrase it to imply that he didn't fly any, but no, he flew 12, and he volunteered to. He didn't have to. He was an intelligence officer, but he flew 12 missions, and then there was a matter of like again telling a big fish story about a wound he got that was actually sustained under like not under combat conditions, but dude was a Marine. He didn't have to join the military at all. He actually was
Yeah, he was
exempt.
exempt as a judge.
Yeah, he was a judge. He didn't have to serve, but he volunteered, specifically volunteered for the Marines.
If you're gonna go, go all the way.
Yeah, but
Just
no. So they bring up this. Oh well, he lied about his war record. At least he had a war record,
yeah.
and it
Yeah,
doesn't
but
that doesn't invalidate
gonna
anything else.
probably
Yeah,
forward a lot of Stefan Molyneux's talking points on this because he did a really good job. But he's like,
yeah.
oh, an Irishman exaggerating his war record. Who thought? I was like, yeah. I was like, come on,
Exactly.
guys. I mean, look, yeah, okay, fine. He may not have killed the emperor himself in, like a back alley brawl, with a broken beer bottle. Yeah, we know. I mean,
Well, even if he did, even if he had totally lied about serving in the Marines or in World War II entirely, he wasn't wrong about the commies infiltrating the United States government. We have the
and that's
Venona
the
cables.
thing. And that's the thing. Being a jerk doesn't make you wrong. It just makes you a jerk. And I don't think Joe McCarthy was that. He was just,
No,
well, and the other
Irish.
thing is,
as the poem says, he didn't, it didn't matter to him to see his, hear his enemies groan. He was like, no, I'm going to keep hitting you because he's also a boxer. You
Yeah,
don't go out there to sort of play slappy hands. If you're going to, engage in some violence, you might as well have all the violence you can lay down quickly to make sure that you get it done in the, in the proper fashion.
yeah. As Heinlein said, violence has actually solved more problems than anything in history.
well,
True.
and the other thing is that, like, okay, let's say he was a jerk. Like, there are some kinds of problems, there are some kinds of issues where a nice guy isn't going to be able to fix it, isn't going to address it. And sometimes you need not nice people to come in and, take care of things like that.
Yeah, Andy Griffith wouldn't have tamed Tombstone. You needed Wyatt Earp.
Right?
And that's
Or,
that's the thing. We put this idea of niceness, and me and Sean have talked about this a few times. That this idea that being nice is not the same as being good. Oftentimes, being nice is ineffective, and in the end, uselessness is its own unique brand of evil. Because what are you going to do? To be good, you really you can be good at heart, I suppose, but to really be good, you need to get results. Otherwise, you're benign. The evil will see you as benign, and you might as well just be evil.
yeah, it's if you look at the instructions of Jesus, he told his disciples to be as innocent as doves, right? He also said, "Be as wise as serpents."
Right.
Uh, and so it's and much of the church today has hacked those two apart and kind of thrown out half. And so
Much of the church these days isn't even as innocent as doves; they're dumb as pigeons. I Oh man, I'm actually going to be doing a video for my church later this month. They asked me to work on that, and I was like, oh cool. And so I was like, yeah, what are the topics I have to choose from? And one of them was to exhort people to remember the greatness of God, and how they can let that be a part of their life and influence the city, for God and for good. And so I saw that and my eyes lit up. I was like, oh boy, gonna get to talk about this warrior king that we serve. And he's a lamb. He's the Lamb of God, the sacrifice that takes away our sins. But also, let's not forget that he is simultaneously the Lion of Judah. And there's some things that lions are really good at that we apparently don't want to ascribe to this person anymore. But he's not he's not your best friend. He's your Lord. He is your master. Phew. It's gonna be good. But yeah, all this just let's all just have peace and love and all that. Yeah, by all means, but let's not lose the power of what we're doing here.
Right.
And the other thing, and I think I'm stealing from C.S. Lewis here, who was, who was probably taking it from somewhere else and would happily admit that. But if there is such a thing, and okay, if there is such a thing as a just war, if there is such a thing as a war that a Christian can rightly endorse, can rightly take part in, then logically there is also such a thing as an unjust peace. And peace, peace is a good thing, but it is not the only good thing, and it's not even necessarily the best thing. And to make to make peace under conditions which will destroy your family or will destroy your people, that's not what you're supposed to do. You don't go out looking for a fight, but if a fight comes to you, you need to carry it through. So
Right. Well, check this out. See if any of this sounds familiar. Okay, so in 1954, Vermont Republican Senator Ralph E. Flanders gave a speech on the Senate floor against McCarthy on June 1st, and he compared McCarthy to Hitler and accused him of spreading division. Sound familiar?
Orange Man bad.
Godwin's Law, while being a part of the internet, is definitely older than the internet.
Yeah,
Everyone you don't like is Hitler. At least from the mid 40s on.
And that's like a decade after World War II ended.
Yeah.
Already.
This kind of makes me like want to draw a little comic strip where like Hitler is making his war plan. Someone's like, you horrible person, you're just like Adolf Hitler, and he's like,
yeah, yeah, ich bin. Klar.
And Flanders was the guy who led the effort to have McCarthy censured. First, he tried to get him kicked off all his committees. When that didn't work, he drew up 46 articles, and they ended up getting him on 2, which were basically, this is the legal term of art, but process crimes, like failing to cooperate with subcommittee rules and then basically hurting 3 committee members' feelings.
Basically the same kind of things they've been doing to all of the people who have been working with President Trump.
Right.
Unless I'm mistaken,
basically what we get is some guy who they got to, right? Because I would like to know what they had on this guy to turn him into a rhino, Republican in name only. Because if you're doing this, you're an operative for the other side. They had some kind of dirt on him, and so I'm sure they used some background leverage to flip him. Also, 46 articles, that's a whole lot of information that I'm sure he, didn't gather on his own.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's
what interns are for.
Yes, especially when they're communist spies. They're very adept at gathering information.
True.
I hate talking this way because I would like to be optimistic, but I'm very worried that this country is not going to last in a recognizable form through the rest of my lifetime. And
well, Sean, me and you are looking for new careers. Maybe we should get into politics.
no, I've sunk myself. Things I've said on this channel, You
don't understand, Sean. You don't understand. In this polarizing climate, basically having at this point in time, politically, people on our side are going to be very, very likely to judge a person by his enemies. So if the whole other side of the aisle is baying for your blood, you probably at least committed to our side. And so, sure, we can work with you.
Well,
you can't turn your back on us because you'll fall on all the knives that are already out over there.
Well, and the other part of that, and we can just look at Roy Moore in Alabama. Like you can't even count on support on quote unquote our side. Like we're
everybody is really afraid of the whole pedophilia thing. I mean, whether it's proven or not, they don't want to take a chance on defending that guy and then having it be wrong and having it come out to be true. Then you're like, oh no.
Yeah, notice the Democrats never do that. Like they never police their guys.
Well, no, of course.
Notice that
if a
Republican and the governor of Virginia still have jobs.
Yeah. If a Republican, commits some grievous breach of law and morality, they're like, "Oh, look at this hypocrite! Oh, he's a terrible person." If a Democrat does it, they go, "Well, that's being Democrats."
Well,
we never had the standard to start with. What are you talking about? Why are you mad?
Everybody says both things, though, because Republicans join the Democrats in attacking their own guy, like Sean said with Roy Moore.
We got to get
there is an uphill battle.
Look, there needs to be a lot of house cleaning that happens
Agreed.
I'm kind of getting around to the whole vote no incumbent stance. Be like,
Mm.
until the guy is like a lion for what we need to be, like I would have probably said, all right, look, let's reelect everybody in Congress except for like I said, Trey Gowdy before he before he retired. Maybe he said right now I'd probably maybe keep Dan Crenshaw. And I'd probably keep Ocasio-Cortez too, because we really need to keep the clown show going.
Agreed.
See,
Nobody is a more effective Republican operative, than Alexandria Occasional Cortex up there.
see,
Possibly Omar. Possibly Eleanor, but yeah, they're two great tastes that go great together. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
see, the thing that worries me about those about Cortez, because I saw the other day, like, someone said, like, oh, I don't know what you're complaining about. We should hope she runs for president. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Okay, in 2000, in 2000, the idea that a junior senator with almost no public record, with a foreign sounding name and really shady associations would become president would have been ridiculous. And then in 2008, we got President Barack Obama.
Yeah,
Who
I'm going to
else is
give you some
also
backstory.
attacking these days?
Yeah,
And
I'm going to give you some backstory behind that, though, that's going to support your position. Because which state was Obama a junior senator from?
Illinois?
Right, which is my state. I don't mind. I don't mind doxing myself a little bit. The info's out there. Do you know how he came to be a senator from Illinois?
Oh, that's right. The
So that's a whole
some
Blagojevich thing.
some
No.
judge unsealed the divorce records of his opponent.
Bingo. Bingo. Now but that alone didn't do it. That was only part of the problem. Let me lay this out for the audience really quick. Back in about 2004, Obama's opponent was Jack Ryan. Okay. Who's the husband of Jerry Ryan from Star Trek Voyager, incidentally. And she comes into this because they had kind of a messy divorce in California. Now, those family court records were sealed by the California court. But the Chicago Tribune, acting on behest of the Illinois Democrat Party, just managed to somehow cajole the judge into releasing some dirty laundry from the court proceedings, including claims from Jerry Ryan that her husband had taken her to CD clubs like in Paris and overseas that she didn't want to go to, and there was no like direct sexual misconduct on his part implied. It was just, or that, yeah, he forced me to go to these places and it creeped me out. By the way, she later retracted those allegations in a later interview. Okay, and said he was, oh no, he was a great husband. He was a great father to our kids. Now, so nothing in that was illegal. Jack, for his part, said, well, I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep running. And it didn't really hurt him in the polls. He was still beating Obama in the polls. But the Illinois Republican Party forced him to quit the race. They turned on him and they brought in Alan Keyes, who hadn't even been a resident of Illinois, like in the 11th hour, and Obama crushed him. So the Illinois Republican Party is why anyone knows who Barack Obama is. They're why he became president.
And
Oh God.
to return to the original subject, I suspect and fear you could find much the same story about Joseph McCarthy when the hounds of the press were after him. You probably could find a lot of people who theoretically should have been his allies who were, turning on him to protect themselves.
Harrison Flanders, the aforementioned Flanders, yeah.
Well, and the other thing, which I think most people on the right today are aware of this, although it bothers me how many have this like nostalgic view of the press of the past, of the newspapers and TV news of the past, that like they were so much better.
Oh.
But like there's I don't know the year it was written. I think it was shortly after World War II. But C.S. Lewis has that book, That Hideous Strength, and there's that quote. There's this little bit. In fact, I pulled part of the audiobook for a video of mine not long ago. This part of this, and he says, the guy says, well, well, why can't we? Why can't this guy they brought out of the past says, well, why can't we do this ourselves? We have, when I got started, we had like about 10 people on our side, and we managed to retake the country. And he says, yeah, they have the modern person explaining the situation says they have an engine called the press, whereby the people are deceived. We should die without ever being heard of. And apparently, even in C.S. Lewis's time, and very clearly in the case of Senator McCarthy, they weren't really much better then.
Yeah,
much like every other arena, they pay lip service to these standards and ideals, right? And these lofty sort of things that they trying to align themselves with while completely flouting them.
yeah. Prime example: Walter Durante, Moscow bureau chief for the New York Times, won a Pulitzer Prize in 1932 for his reporting on the Bolshevik victory in the Russian Revolution. And well, I certainly don't canonize anyone in hell, but I don't know, he'd be a prime candidate if we did, because he covered up the mass starvations in the Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
He said they weren't happening.
No famines here. No.
Yeah.
The other Joe is totally taking care of his people. He's not killing them by the millions at all. He's not a triple Hitler. No.
Yeah. And there were calls to revoke his prize when his lies were discovered, and nope, still got it.
Well, I mean, nobody ever revoked Obama's Nobel Peace Prize, despite the fact that he was the most, the most slaughterous president, ever.
I love that. That's a great word.
Oh. So,
I want to be very clear. I am going to blast the hell out of these poor Middle Easterners.
And see, getting back to singing a song or telling a story rather than selling it. Here's why Obama was a horrible speaker, because he always talked about himself. Count the times he says "I, me, and my" in one of his speeches. He'd bring every story back to himself.
I don't have enough fingers and toes, bro.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing, because there's
fingers and toes.
You hear people like mock President Trump as being stupid and inarticulate, and it's like, yes, Barack Obama sounded nice and sounded smooth, and
I don't think he did. I listen to his speeches, and all I hear is a bunch of blah blah blah, me, I, and
But he was able to project an image that flattered people who thought they were smarter and better than everyone else. And like, yes, Donald Trump's language is crude and to use the older meaning of the word vulgar, common.
Yeah.
But he also communicates in a way that he communicates in a way that everybody understands. He communicates in a way that regular people get where he's coming from and will get on his side. And it's like he doesn't sound fancy, but he gets the message across, which is more important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to talk about this whole thing he did with the Auburn football team, right? He fed them all the McDonald's and these burgers and fries and stuff. And everybody's getting all upset. Well, they interviewed one of the guys from Auburn. They're talking to him like, don't don't you feel insulted by this? You know, and the guy said, I'm a football player. I was just taken to the White House, by the president to eat cheeseburgers, with this president who A, thought to buy cheeseburgers, have a football team in the White House, and screws porn stars. Nah, he's my kind of guy.
Yeah.
I was like,
well, that brings up, that illustrates the important point that the left and right invest themselves in and support politicians for different reasons. Obama's a perfect example. Obama and Trump are the perfect avatars of this dichotomy because the left invests their identity in their elected officials, right? They are mirrors. So the left praises Obama as articulate and suave and clever because they think of themselves as articulate, suave, and clever and want to be seen that way. So they can point to him as sort of a proxy for themselves. They get a vicarious ego boost out of it. We care about results, and we want guys who are going to get the message across and get things done.
Yeah. Ben Shapiro was talking on one of his recent shows, and he's talking about, he's like, by this point, all this stuff's baked into the cake, and there's a lot of cake, and we know there's a lot of stuff in there. There's like, some rat bones in there and some old boots and whatever, but I mean, we don't care. We understand the guy that we elected. We know what's going on with him. It's just that we also like, all these things that said would never happen again.
Well,
Record
nothing
low unemployment for minorities and, record employment for women, 4% economic growth for years running. I mean, hey, what you going to do? It's like, we understand the guy is a little, he's sleazy, straight up. So straight up, no varnish. The man is a bit sleazy.
He's a New York real estate developer who's almost certainly done like crooked dealings with the mob to get buildings built. Okay. And yet the fact that flyover country conservatives, social conservatives are willing to support this guy because he's the only one who will listen to us should tell the blue blood Rockefeller Republicans, the rhinos, as you said, in the GOP establishment.
The people who don't want to have McCarthy on their team. Even
it should tell McCarthy any day of the week. Give me a whole Congress full of them.
Yeah, I will take Trump over Paul Ryan any day of the week.
Yeah.
Any day of the week.
I said he fights. I said he fights, all right? Conservatives in this country, died in the wool Republicans, like actual, I'm going to call us red bones, even though there are some, some sort of feelings against that in certain places. But, Republican, conservative to the core people, the true believers in conservatism, we're used to watching, getting our butts kicked out there. It's something I've said before is that the problem with the two parties is when the Democrats get in power, they act like they're never going to lose an election again. So they do all this crazy stuff, overreach their powers and, just wreck things such it's going to take a generation to put it back, if ever. And then you elect a bunch of Republicans, they get in power and act like they never won the election to start with. But Donald Trump comes in and he's like, all right, let's have this fight.
Well, and the other thing, to go back just a little bit, you were saying, okay, Donald Trump is, kind of sleazy, and it's like, yeah, but then like, you look at like his opponents. You look at Hillary Clinton, during the election, there were we found out about these emails where her I don't remember the position where, like, John Podesta was going to this like spirit cooking dinner, like at, we hope, pseudo satanic ritual. We hope pseudo satanic.
I mean, the literal witches came out to try and hex Trump out of office. So that was amusing.
And like, and they, defend, they make heroes out of, pederasts, the Democrat Party, like Harvey Milk. His own biographer, who liked him, who was, doing this as a tribute to him, said he had a penchant for teenage boys with drug addictions, for drug addicted teenage boys. And it's like,
that's a classy fella right there.
And it's like, okay, Donald Trump, not the strictest moral standards, fine. Not, shining impeccably clean. Fine. Also, not a Satanist, and I have to stop there because I can't use the words I want to use.
Look at New York, Virginia, and Illinois' infanticide laws, right? And tell me that's not Moloch worship.
Yeah.
We talked about this last time, and I had to stop talking.
Yeah, I think we might have...
Because
Go ahead.
I'm a quiet person. I'm a peaceful. Well, I say I'm a quiet person. I prefer a peaceful life. I like to live quietly. I value peace above just about anything else. You know, the only things that top peace in my home, I would prefer, I need to have justice, truth, and then I'd like to have peace. But I'm here to tell you that when I think about that kind of thing, it taps into this a deep well of fury. And I have to ask hard questions of myself. And I have to, I have to ask, make really stiff declarations of myself about the kind of person I want to be. Because it would be really easy, I think, for a lot of people these days, given what's going on with these measures, these abominations that are coming down. I think it'd be easy for a lot of people to, say, no, it's pitchfork time. It's time to get out the hose and the torches, and it's time to start marching. And we're gonna expunge some monsters from our countryside, you guys.
In Minecraft.
Yes.
In case either of you is a Fed. No offense, but I haven't met you in real life.
Nice try, FBI. But no, I mean, I said there's... And so, politically, we can have this fight. We can... So it's time, honestly, it is time for there to be a counter move. It is time that, people of goodwill and good morality, people who are interested in actual justice, forget about social justice, by the way. Social justice is stupidity. Social justice is moral relativism and utilitarianism being put into politics. There's no such thing. But true justice and the defense of life and defense of good things, it's time that we have ourselves a bit of a political uprising in favor of that. We've had civil rights, we've had big movements for justice before, and it's time we had another one. This kind of goes a little bit beyond the poem, but we haven't been actually mentioned the poem in about 20 minutes, so I think I'm okay.
Well, you're only talking about this because of the part of the poem where it says, oh, where is it? Your doggedness just couldn't shatter those final obstacles. Right? And so unfortunately, because guys like Flanders succeeded, we had to kick the can a little further down the road. Well, more like a snowball because it's only gotten bigger. And yeah, we couldn't nip it in the bud back then, despite McCarthy's best efforts. So we got to deal with the fallout now.
I mean, it's like, it leaves me at a loss. Because when you come down to it, reason and logic and right are on our side, and yet we're losing against a bunch of hysterical screaming and money.
What does that tell you?
Tells me maybe we need to start screaming hysterically. I don't know.
Well,
the problem is if we bend to the tactics of the other side and we start doing things the way they do things, then we're going to turn into them, and then there really is no hope.
Well, did Patton turn into a Nazi because he copied Rommel's tank warfare tactics? No. The reason,
True.
the moral object of what we're doing determines the rightness of our cause. Now, I'm not a consequentialist. I'm not saying the ends justify the means, but not everything the other side does is immoral. We might find it uncouth. I mean, the reasons they do it are moral, but arguing rhetorically is not immoral. You know, the greatest orators of all time have all done it. Trump does it. It's why he's winning. Being willing to say counter SJWs who try voice actors, movie makers, and authors in the Twitter court of feels over reels and get away with it and destroy careers. If conservatives would be willing to sue them or prosecute them for tortious interference in a business or contract and haul them into court where feels don't matter, all they care is if there's evidence that the law was broken,
Well,
they stop.
they shouldn't. The feels shouldn't matter, but courts these days.
It's not as reliable as you'd like, but there is a chance there at least. And
Honestly, I do think the conservative side should embrace lawfare because it worked. Well, that Sandman Kid, the MAGA hat kid.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I
I'm
cannot wait to see what happens.
I'm hoping Sandman puts oh god, what is it? Who are they suing for like $250 million?
Oh, they're suing the Washington Post. They're suing private individuals.
I mean, they broke out the good shotgun. They're hitting everybody with something, but I think they're actually suing the WAPO hard enough to kill it if they lose that and can't settle out of court. And I'm hoping, like I said, the Sandman Kid spells good night for WAPO because
same here.
We got enough propaganda, thanks.
Amen.
Like to use another recent example, because I remember seeing a video from someone on the Christian and conservative side saying, oh, this shouldn't have happened. Like James Gunn, the director of Guardians of the Galaxy, and like he got fired. He got taken out of that. Regrettably, I don't know where he is now, and I suspect he's managed to find himself another. As long as he's not close to my kids, I'll be okay. But they managed to get him fired. We managed to get him fired. You guys like, no, we shouldn't be doing this kind of thing. Okay, getting someone fired is not in itself immoral, okay? And like,
no,
and this is something Ace of Spades. It's a blog I read. Ace.mu.nu. He's been saying for a while is that like the only way they're going to stop wrecking people's lives over this stuff is if they have to fear that the same thing might happen to them.
Yeah, it's reprisals. It's as old as warfare.
And and frankly, like, even if you take out all the political context, like, you put together the things he like publicly said and like the pictures of the ha ha, isn't it hilarious pedophile party? Like, no, that guy needs to go. And it's it actually I don't know what's actually going on with him. I kind of suspect it might be this thing that happens with a decadent elite or elitists at least, yes, where they they do things specifically because wouldn't this shock and horrify those dumb peasants?
Yeah, exactly. Another blog that I read quite often, the Z blog, written by a guy, the Z Man, who's got quite a few interesting takes on the current social milieu. He likes to talk about the divide between the cloud people, our elites, and the dirt people, that's us, and just how we've become two separate cultures sharing the same territory, but we can't stand each other because they have nothing but sneering contempt and derision for us. And to us, they look like freaking space aliens. We can't understand.
There was the Bill Meyer thing a couple weeks ago talking about the Amazon headquarters. Do you know what I'm talking about? And he was like, "Oh, they don't hate us. They wanna be like us." And he goes on this disparaging thing, which I thought you guys were supposed to care about the poor. Like, isn't that kind of your brand? But
sorry, go ahead.
That's been their lie ever since, oh God, I don't know, 1860.
and he goes,
we care about the downtrodden because if they rise up, we're going to fall off where we were trotting them down, and we can't have that.
Well, look at how Trump has been able to peel off the blue collar working class from Democrats, like in the Rust Belt.
Well, that's how Trump got elected. Is he got a lot of those people. And what's funny is that they went back and in the midterms, a lot of the seats that turned blue again in the House were moderate Democrats, and they're actually behaving like moderates. They're telling Ocasio-Cortez and her ilk to go like, "Hey guys, calm down. All right. I mean, we're not going to be able to co-sign this stuff. We want to get reelected." And our constituents are like, "Look, we're still willing to be blue. We're just not willing to do that." Okay. We like some of this more conservative stuff that's going on around here. You know what I'm saying? It says we don't have to flip the D. We don't have to add the two sticks to our D to make it the R yet. But
we like jobs.
Yeah, we like jobs. We like making money. Pookie down the road, he ain't got to be on unemployment no more, right? He got him a job. The factory's open again. It's great. I can pay my rent this month. But yeah, so like I said, a lot of these moderate Democrats, the blue dogs, are actually like, guys, we actually have moderate Democrats again, which is crazy to me. I was like, I never thought to see that breed rise. I thought we'd have to just scorch that whole party out of existence and then grow some other sort of opposition group.
I was just talking to my boy Pookie down the road, and he said that with his tax rebate, he's going to get a jet ski.
Yeah. I don't know how you're going to pull it. You got to sit in his front yard or something, but hey, jet ski. Hell yeah. See
we can set up like a blue background to pretend.
Oh, wait, no, that was it. With his old ladies' tax refund, they're going to get an inflatable pool, put a jet ski in it. Woo! No, but that's the thing, man. It says what you subsidize, you get more of. Mm-hmm. So if you subsidize poverty and generational, paternal absence, here's what you're going to get. And so they've destroyed, what? Except after slavery, black folks in America had, and I ain't calling them African Americans. For one, it's too many syllables. For two, they were born in America. They're Americans. The only guy that I ever met I've met a handful of people that I would say are actually African Americans because they're actually from Africa and had American citizenship. Two of them were white. Two of them were white, and the other two were from Nigeria. So okay, fine.
Yeah.
And they're all in the military. I said the two actual black African Americans I ever met were in the military. Great guys. Mr. Nuhu, if you somehow see this, I miss you, man. You're the best. But American blacks after slavery and all that had built a very stable sort of family, family dynamic, right? They actually had more stable families in the late 50s than white folks had. I mean, it was kind of marginal. It wasn't a whole lot. But at the same time, yeah, their parents would stay together more than white parents would. And I guess it seems, I have no support for this. This is me talking right off the top of my hat. But, probably because they had the history of their families being split up that, they valued it more. And it kind of got inculcated in their culture. But then, the dole started to happen. All this inner city garbage came about. And now you've got where, God, what is it? 80% of black kids in America are born to single mothers, like born out of wedlock.
Well,
That's not a culture. I'm
well,
sorry. Look,
and,
this is a controversial statement. I might not be able to run for president after this. That's not a culture. That's just a breeding population.
well, and the other thing with that, and this actually, connects to a video I'd like to make someday about why especially people who think for a living and people who talk for a living need to get involved in some kind of physical competition or physical labor. Um, you have you have to have resistance. You have to have something you are pushing back against. And if you make things in some ways too easy for people, you're seriously damaging them. And yeah, I think it is about time. We could obviously go on for a long time. I think it is probably about time to wrap up. So, thank you for joining us, Mr. Niemeyer.
Thank you for having
And
me.
thank you, Nate, for joining us again. And
Vote
yep,
me 2028.
last thoughts from either of you on the poem or other relevant.
Those
Yeah.
last lines are important because, I mean, it's interesting to hear it, given some of the responses you get about things like they sneer and say, who cares? What does it matter? Which, that sound familiar?
Yeah.
But it does matter. Fact and truth matter. Being right matters. Not morally right. The truth is morally right. Justice is morally right. Feeling nice is not necessarily morally right. I would feel nice if I let my kids eat cake, but then they would die. So, like I said, correcting history and understanding history correctly matters. Okay? It's not, oh, well, it's done now. Who cares? Okay, fine. But we can at least learn from it. You're never going to learn the lesson if you don't care about who is right, if you just parrot what you're told. So, when you learn something that you were taught wrong, make sure to spread it around that, hey, you're being taught wrong. I was taught wrong. I learned better. Here's the information. Because, like I said, the truth is really all that matters.
Amen.
Mr. Niemeyer, any last thoughts from you before we close out?
I'm just glad this poem exists. I
I
never thought of reading this even a couple of years ago. I'm glad that the truth is getting out.
I honestly think I think it's November 18th. I could have the date wrong, but I think it's November 18th. His birthday should be a holiday, and I encourage everyone to celebrate it on their own as as an American holiday. I do not know the proper rights to celebrate Mr. McCarthy's birthday,
A
but
donkey pinata.
Donkey pinata in a boxing match.
okay. Well, thank you both for joining me tonight, and we'll be closing out. And God be with you.
And also with you.